Hello, welcome to Windshine Audio channel. I'm Alvin, owner of Windshine Audio. Let's talk about the Denafrips Venus 2 R-2R deck. Denafrips has a series of R-2R deck ranging from the entry series Aries 2, Pontus 2, Venus 2, this guy right over here, Terminator 2, and the Terminator Plus. And Venus 2 is sitting in between the Pontus 2 and Terminator 2. The size is identical to the Pontus 2, but the internal wise is, in my opinion, closer to the original Terminator that is released in year 2017 to 2020. And of course, the Terminator 2 has evolved, and it is closer to the Terminator Plus right now. But this Venus 2, in my humble opinion, is really closer to the one that is the Terminator that is released in year 2019 or year 2020. There's a variant Terminator that we released in year 2019, and between year 2019 and year 2020 that uses some of the parts that is very similar to the Venus 2. I'll be having another video to talk about what is inside this Venus 2, but this video is really to show you the operation, some of the trick that you can do to this Venus 2 to further optimize the sound quality and to fit in this deck into your system pattern. Right, so Venus 2 is built of high quality aluminum, and the front panel, side panel, and the top cover are all fully aluminum, and it weighs about 12 kilograms. I think slightly more than that. Despite the size is identical to the Pontus 2, but it actually weighs a little bit heavier than the Pontus 2. Reason being is there's metal sheet in between the main board and the power supply board, and the components used inside is different to that of the Pontus 2. That's why it's a little bit heavier. Of course, I'll zoom into that in another video. Okay, right. The front panel is also look different compared to the Pontus 2. It looks similar to the one to the Terminator 2 and also the original Terminator. You can find the button arrangement is different, and other than that, I would say it's very similar to the Pontus 2. Let me flip to the back so that you can see the connection available. Oh, it's pretty heavy. Right. Okay, we have the IEC connector for power inlet. We have the digital input on the right side, and we have the analog output on the left side. What do we have for the digital input? USB input, I2S over HDMI, optical input, AES EBU input, two of them, and SPDIF input over BNC or RCA. Right, for the output wise, we have a pair of RCA and a pair of XLR. Venus 2 is true balance DAC, so we recommend to use the XLR output whenever possible. And it is also important to note that the RCA output and the XLR output are shared. So please use one output at a time, but not both simultaneously. Using both output at the same time simultaneously, connecting to the downstream equipment, may have an adverse effect to the sound quality. So if you, in the event that you need to connect both RCA and XLR output at the same time, please refer to the link below for some suggestion. Right, let me flip it to the front. Okay, don't damage anything on the table. It's pretty heavy. Right. We do not ship the Venus 2 with power cord. I always recommend the customer to use studio grade cable like Gotham cable, Soma cable, Mogami cable. Brand like Belden and Canary is fine as well. Right, these are the cable that I use in my system. Let me show it to you. Power cord from Gotham cable, and this is my DIY Mogami cable. This is a digital coaxial cable that I made many years ago. So I always recommend Pro Audio or Studio grade cable because they are inexpensive and high quality. Okay, and let me power on this guy. I have a simple power cord here for demonstration purpose, and there's no voltage switch on the Venus 2. The voltage is auto sensing. As soon as you plug in the power cord, there's an auto sensing circuitry inside this Venus 2 to switch a series of relay to send the correct voltage to the transformer to power up this guy. If you are in the US, the voltage will be 120, and the auto sensing circuitry will detect the AC mains and switches a couple of relay internally to send the power to the transformer. So if you are in the US, it's 120. If you are in the Europe, UK, or like me in Singapore, the voltage will be 240. So as soon as I plug in this power cord, you should hear a couple of relay clicking sound. So the relay clicking sound is really to send, is really because of the auto sensing circuitry inside this guy is doing its job to send the voltage to the DAC itself. It may take about 3 to 5 seconds to start up. During this startup time, please do not press any button on the front panel. Let it fully start up before you rush to use it. Okay, power cord plug in. First relay click, and the second relay click. I hope the microphone is strong enough, is sensitive enough to pick it up. Alright, so once the relay clicks and send the power to the power supply, the unit should power on. You will notice that the standby LED here turn on. It tells us that the unit is in standby, it is ready for operation as soon as we hit the power button. Press on the power button once to turn on this guy, and the last selected digital input LED will light up. What was it? Let me see. It was a USB. So the USB input LED light up. It was the last input that the DAC was in. Okay, and there are some other push button here. Let me explain to you what are the function. Input minus button changes the input from the right to the left. So as you toggle this button, you notice that the input LED changed from the right to the left. So it allows us to select the input of the left side, right? And the input plus button allow us to change the input from the left to the right. So this input plus and minus button is really for you to select the digital input that you want to use. What are the button here? Right, phase button. So phase button here, as you press this phase button, it toggles the phase output polarity, positive or negative phase. It is one of the most frequently asked questions. What is the phase button or phase function really used for? So it changes the output phase 0 or 180 degree. It really depends on the source, on the amplifier, and also on the loudspeaker. There's no hard rule here. You need to trial and error to find one of the phase configuration of the DAC to suit the sound best for your system. So in honesty, I leave the phase LED on. On my desktop setup here, I can't really tell the difference between negative phase or positive phase. So I'm just leaving it on. Leaving it on will be phase LED on is positive phase. Some of the function that you might be of interest to you is the NOS or OS selection here. So this NOS or OS button here, as you press on it and toggle it, the LED turn on and off. Leave the LED on for NOS and leave the LED off for OS. For Denafrips DAC, the OS comes in 2 filters, sharp filter and slow filter. And you notice that there's no other button here allow you to change this filters configuration. Reason being is there's no large display on the Venus 2 or any of the Denafrips DAC. We make use of the push button here and the combination and the series of LED status for us to configure the DAC. So for filter selection or any other special configuration that is not found intuitively by using the front panel, we need to go into configuration mode. So how do we go into configuration mode? Is by pressing the mute button once. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I press the mute button once. Once the mute is engaged, the LED blink from the left to the right. So this tells us that it is in mute mode. It can also be configuration mode. So at this point in time, if you press the mode button, you notice that the OPT LED turn on and off. Not only that, we have the USB and I2S LED turn on. It tells us that the Venus 2 is in configuration mode, and the OPT button or OPT LED here tells us that the filter is, when the OPT LED on, it is in slow filter, and the OPT LED off, it is in sharp filter. So I personally like the slow filter better. I will leave the OPT LED on. After a couple of seconds later, the DAC will be back to operation mode, where you will see the last selected digital input light up and the sampling rate light up if the last selected digital input source is feeding the signal to the DAC. If there's no digital signal feeding into the DAC, the sampling rate LED will be off. Let's see. Okay, it is back to operation mode. How do I know? The last selected I2S input is on, and there's no sampling rate LED light out here. So this tells us that the DAC is back to operation mode. So it may be a little bit confusing here because we are talking about the configuration mode as well as the operation mode. And how do you know that the filter is selected correctly? you can go back to the configuration mode to check the filter selection. So how do we do this? Again, press on the mute button once. As soon as the mute mode engage, the input LED turn on and off from the left to the right, and press on mute button once to check the filter selection. Press on it once and OPT LED light up. It is telling us that the filter selection of the Venus 2 DAC is in slow filter. So after a couple of seconds later, the DAC back to normal operation where the I2S last selected input will light up. Okay, right, we have it here. I hope the camera is strong enough to pick up all this LED status. Otherwise, I'll take another video to show you just the front panel itself and how do you configure the filter selection. Okay, since we are on I2S pinout needs to be configured. So Denafrips DAC comes with this I2S pinout configuration that you can change the pinout of the I2S to match with the source. I have another video that covers the I2S configuration in a very comprehensive way. So please refer to the video if you want to use I2S. And also please remember, I2S need to be configured before you can use it correctly. Otherwise, it may generate noise and the excessive noise is harmful to the loudspeaker. I'll just do a pretty quick run through on how do you configure the I2S pinout of this Venus 2 DAC. Again, configuration mode, press on the mute button once. As the mute mode engage, you are now able to configure the I2S or the filter setting or the DSD channel swap or some of the setting that are available on this Venus 2 DAC. How do we change the I2S pinout? Press on the phase button multiple times. As you toggle the phase button, you notice that the 1x, 2x, 3x, 1x, 2x, and 4x LED turn on and off in a binary form of 000 to 111. So these are the I2S pinout configuration mode available for the Denafrips Pontus Venus, Terminator 2, and the Terminator Plus DAC. Okay, I'll just quickly run through this setting, otherwise this video will be too long. And I think that's about it. If you want to use USB input, just plug in the USB cable. I have a computer here, so I'll just quickly show you how do you use the USB input. It's a USB 2.0 type A to type B cable. Plug in the USB cable to the back of the port and plug in the other end to the computer. And right, let me see. Okay. So if you are using Windows computer, please download and install the driver from Denafrips website. By installing the driver on the Windows computer, it allows the Windows computer to use the driver and communicate exclusively to the USB driver or the USB receiver of the Denafrips DAC. If you have not downloaded and installed the driver on the Windows computer, please do so because it will further elevate and improve the sound quality. For Mac, Linux or Raspberry Pi or some other streamer on the market, you do not need to install the driver. The driver is only required for Windows computer. I'll be using Roon to play some music, and let me launch Roon. Okay, right. So Roon is pretty powerful software. I like it a lot, and there are some other settings that I like in Roon that it's pretty user friendly, I would say. Okay, so as soon as Roon is launched, we'll be using the USB input. Please remember to select USB input on the Venus 2 by pressing the input minus button. So once the USB is detected by Roon core or the computer, you will be able to play some music from Roon. I forget to connect the XLR cable. Okay, the Venus 2 of course need to be connected to the preamp to the power loudspeaker. And I will be recommending you to connect the XLR cable because this is a true balance DAC. I always recommend to use the XLR cable if possible. Right, connect the XLR cable to the back, and the XLR cable is connected to my Hestia preamp. I have a Hestia preamp here. Let me select the correct input. Input 2 for Venus, and turn up the volume just a little bit, and play a track from Michael Jackson. Okay, music is playing, and we notice 48K, 2X, and 8X LED turn on the front panel. It is telling us that the DAC is receiving 16 times 48K, which is a 768K kHz sampling rate from the computer. If you play some other track without upsampling, because I'm trying to upsample using Roon, let me turn off the upsampler. So sampling rate conversion turn off from Roon, and it will be back to the native sampling rate coming from Roon, which is 48K 2 times. So it's a 96 kHz sampling rate from Roon core sending to the DAC. And if you play DSD or if you upsample the track to DSD, the DSD LED will on, and depending on the rate that you're playing, the multiplier will turn on as well. Let me upsample to 512. DSD LED on, AX LED on. It is telling us that it is playing DSD 512, and you notice that the 44K1 LED here turn on as well. It is a DSD 512 track with 41 kHz sampling rate base. So if you use HQ player, you know that DSD track comes with 48K sampling rate as well. So yeah, HQ player is pretty powerful software. We'll cover that in another video. But this is just to tell you that you can actually play or upsample the track from Rune by using the USB input. I think I covered most of the stuff, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Thank you.